Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Safety here with Chris Ballas. Anthony Broom is out on his bachelor party, hopefully bringing back some Tigers dubs in Chicago, watching the Tigers play the Cubs and White Sox.
Wait a minute. He's at his bachelor party and we're not there?
I know. Well, we had
what the hell's going on here? They didn't want the old guy hanging around, right? The creepy old guy. Is that how this works? I get it. All right. Thanks, Anthony.
Well, we're not Tigers fans, apparently. Apparently, we don't.
Like we're not Tigers fans either. I do hope they win today, and I hope he has a great time in all seriousness. And
100%.
He's doing great. I'm really happy for him.
Definitely. He has a fall wedding, which is a whole nother topic in and of itself, but hope he enjoys himself. And again, bring back some Tigers dubs. We got one last night. So hope the boys have fun out in Chicago. We got a lot to get to today. We got team captains from the University of Michigan selected by their teammates and announced this morning. Also wrap up fall camp here at the end. And I want to get to something that's all the rage in college football that we'll talk about at the end. But before we get into it, make sure to like the video if you're watching on YouTube. If you're excited for Michigan's season, give us a thumbs up. We want to see at least a few thousand in there. Leave a comment as well. Subscribe to our channel. And head to thewolverine.com for all of your Michigan football, basketball, and recruiting coverage. Right now, we're running a sale until the end of the day, midnight on Thursday night. So 11:59 on Thursday night here, August 22nd. 50% off your annual subscription using the promo code GOBLUE at thewolverine.com. You can get on the message board. You can get behind the paywall on all of our premium articles. And Chris dropped Inside the Fort Part 1 this morning with a insanely detailed and loaded amount of intel on Michigan's scrimmage and recent practices on the offense. Defense, I assume, is coming. Tomorrow we'll drop another Inside the Fort Part 2 as well. So got to get in today to get the Part 2 at 50% off tomorrow. But go and do that at thewolverine.com. 4 captains named for Michigan. Senior safety Rod Moore, fifth-year senior safety Makari Page, senior running back Donovan Edwards, and senior fullback / tight end Max Bredesen, joining his brother, a former 2-time captain, Ben, in 18 and 19, now as a Michigan captain. 2 alternate captains, senior edge Josiah Stewart, and fifth-year senior running back, former linebacker Kalel Mullings. No surprises, really, CB.
No, and 3 of them were obvious to me. I thought, because they're seniors, right? And they're going with seniors. And if there have been instances in the past where Michigan has had junior captains, and that's just that's now it's seniors. And we wondered if Sherrone Moore would deviate from that. What Jim Harbaugh said last year, it's going to be seniors. It's still seniors, and I think it should be, right? These are guys that have been here and been around the program for a long time. Max Bredesen, I thought, was an obvious choice. Rod Moore, to me, was the most obvious choice. And then Donovan Edwards was also right there. So the big one, and you nailed it, Makari Page. And sometimes it's guys who, you can get a good idea of with the guys that they bring to Big Ten Media Day. Makari Page, though, is so quiet, and he's such a quiet kid. And Wink Martindale told me, man, I need this kid to be more vocal, this summer. And but clearly his teammates thought highly enough of him as a leader by example and the guy that they could go to ask questions, that they chose him. And he's such a great kid, man. I'm thrilled for him. I love the stories and reading it and hearing it about how they call their parents, and their parents are asking, hey, what did you hear? What did you hear? Because to this day, for example, Tom Brady and John Jansen, just to name 2, say it is the biggest honor that they have ever had in their football lives to be named a captain at Michigan. That's how much it means to these kids. So I think they're great choices. I can't wait to see what these guys do on the field, man. I feel like we're done talking, Clay. It's just time to go out and play and see what they've got. But to me, all fantastic choices here.
Yeah, and John Jansen tweeted today, this is his favorite day of the year. He congratulated the new captains, and you're not just a captain for this season. You're a captain really at Michigan forever. John Jansen knows that. Tom Brady is still a captain, 2-time captain as well. And you're right, they did deviate a little bit. 2018 was the year where you saw a couple juniors be captains. Ben Bredesen, that's how he became a 2-time captain, was here 4 years, but 2 of them spent as a captain. And then Devin Bush as well that year. But yes, it was strictly seniors, 5th years, 6th years, or 7th years. A couple of those guys on the team that could have been elected captains. And then the 2 alternates, depending on, who goes out for the coin toss. let's say somebody doesn't travel due to injury or something like that, they got the other guys there, and other guys will step up as leaders as well. But a great group, and you kind of touched on it there, but the stories of each guy they're really interesting. Like Rod Moore is a kid from Ohio who was a 3-star, overlooked, and is like, just beats Ohio State at every turn any way he can, is huge in those victories. Donovan Edwards, is kind of maybe stepping into that star role as the running back, a little more obvious, but a homegrown kid. Makari Page, a little more quiet, also a homegrown kid. How about 2 kids from West Bloomfield being named captain? So that pipeline is looking really strong. And then Max Bredesen, a kid who has just carved out a role for himself on this team. His brother played here. His other brother went here. He walks on and now is a captain and a key part of this team at a very unique position, H-back, fullback, tight end, whatever you want to call him. So it's exciting to see these guys and how proud they are. Jim Harbaugh had just called Donovan Edwards before he took the podium and to talk to the media today. And Donovan said, man, I got to call him back. So he missed the call from Coach Harbaugh. I think it was because he was in the bathroom. So I'm sure that would be a fun conversation to listen in on. Those two obviously love each other, but these are the guys they're going to ride with. And Rod Moore mentions that he has very high expectations for this group, even though he went down with his injury and he won't be playing, at least for now. He believes that they're going to go back to back, win it all. And he said, hey, he didn't rule anything out when he was asked about his injury. He did, basically he said there's no timetable right now. He's feeling good with the recovery. He's attacking it every day. He's walking better. There's no pain, but it would take a lot for him to come back. I think that's just the way I've read it. And then just you do the math about getting surgery in late April, but just a stud and somebody who's going to be Coach Rod, he said, the rest of the way.
Just get healthy, kid, was what I say, and make sure that your career remains on the right path here, and don't try to come back too soon. As much as I would love to see him come back and beat Ohio State a 4th time. We were on the field down there in 2022, Clay. That was a great moment for us when Michigan beat Ohio State, and I was so glad that you guys got to see that, because it's been a long time, man, since 2000 that I was on that field when Michigan won. And Rod Moore made no bones about who owned that stadium. Let's put it that way. And was extremely happy as a guy who was essentially passed over by Ohio State. No, essentially about it, really. He was. Yes. And comes to Michigan and becomes a Buckeye Slayer. So I would love to see that for him. At the same time, more than anything, I want to see him have a great career and get healthy. Max Bredesen is a guy that somebody told me yesterday, one of the practice observers, might be the most underrated player on this team, given his role, his physicality, that everybody follows his lead when it comes to how physical to be in practice and what to bring. These guys are hitting, and Max Bredesen's a big reason for that. He sets the tone there. So great stories, man, going from walk-on. He played quarterback in high school. Yes. And now he's out there just wrecking people. So can't say enough about Donovan Edwards, man. Just always happy, always. He's got that big booming deep voice. He's probably had it since he was 9 years old, right? So, or whatever. But this guy, to me, fantastic choices. And it really speaks to the culture in the room, that you've got guys that understand that they're all champions, multiple year champions, and they understand the culture. And there were captains in the past where you're like, man, if you don't know how to win, how are you going to lead and lead guys into victory? But these guys have all been there and are all great choices. So can't wait to see what they do.
Yeah, there was part of it. It felt like early in the Harbaugh era where, he's kind of a hard-ass coach, right? And he's going to get on you, and he's pushing these guys, and they were going 4 hours in practice that first spring and still did throughout his tenure at times. But after a few years went by, and if you're there for a few years, you're thinking, well, this doesn't even guarantee us or lead us to winning a championship. But now they have the proof, right? And Jim Harbaugh kept saying last year, the proof is in the pudding. And it's a cliche, obviously, but it's true, because now they can prove that, this work does lead to at least putting yourself in position to win a championship or multiple championships. That's what they've done. And a really encouraging thing that Donovan Edwards said today was that the captains that he learned from the most and that have stuck with him the most were his freshman year, when it was Aiden Hutchinson and Josh Ross, and how they led this meeting in spring ball before they took the practice field for the first time. And they said 2020 is in the past. Like, if you don't want to do all the things and buy into everything we're going to do this year, then you can get and then Donovan stopped himself and said, you can get out of here. But I think we all know exactly what Hutch and Josh Ross and those guys said. So Donovan Edwards has been here. Makari Page was part of that 2020 season. Max Bredesen was here, and Rod Moore for the start of the turnaround. So it's not like all they know is success. They know what the other side looks like, and they damn sure want to keep it the way it is right now, which I think is really important. And it sounds like this, they feel confident about their team. Everyone does in the preseason, but moving into, kind of recapping fall camp a little bit, Donovan Edwards says the offense has started to click the last few days. I know you had a lot of encouraging things to report inside the fort, so we're not going to give all those away. People can go to thewolverine.com, but that's kind of the big question mark, because we know how good this defense can be, at least in how we're projecting it. But the offense clicking, he said the last 4 or so practices, you even heard a week or so ago, is, hey, we beat the defense yesterday, that sort of thing. So it's been trending a little bit in that direction.
Yeah, I want to say 2 things about the alternate captains. First of all, Josiah Stewart, man, what a story he is. An undersized edge to come out and beat out a guy like Quentin Johnson, who's been here forever, right? Is the old man in the room. And I thought last year, for example, Mike Barrett was a lock because he'd been here for 6 years. And I know what his teammates think of Quentin Johnson, and I know the kind of kid he is. So Josiah Stewart, though, what respect he has earned from his teammates to come in there and assimilate into the culture and be that guy. Fantastic for him. And Kalel is a guy, some people said, hey, he's not making it as a linebacker. There's been talk that he might transfer out, and now he's a Michigan captain. And in my opinion, has a future in the NFL at running back, right? And whether it's special teams, backup running back, whatever, he's going to get his opportunity, and he is going to play in the NFL. He's a guy that you've got like 3 Michigan coaches out there now, right? That you've got Michigan coaches everywhere right now that would take if somebody else didn't pick up Kalel Mullings, they understand how valuable he can be and will pick him up. But I think he's going to have a huge year too. So great for those guys as well. I love it. And man, I love the ends, Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore. But speaking of the offense, again, according to practice observers and coaches and players that we've spoken with, they really like the way the offensive line is coming around. And now there are still a couple pieces that have to be ironed out there, but that is a work in progress. And we're going to see what happens in games. That's when this is really going to be decided. You can throw out a guy there in a first game, and I'll show my age and go back to the 1990s. There was a kid named Sean Miller who was really a good lineman. Had some struggles early on in early games, and they replaced him, I think, in game 2 or game 3, and didn't look back. And he still had a valuable role on the team. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to minimize his accomplishments as a Wolverine. David Boss had to take over at center. I believe it was 2004 when somebody else didn't pan out there, and he became a Remington Award winner. Moved from guard to safety. They plugged somebody else in at guard. So just because a guy starts the opener against Fresno State doesn't mean he has to stay there if he doesn't perform. So that's why this thing's going to continue to go that way. So same can be said of the quarterbacks. We've got some guys on our message board saying it's Alex Orji based on what they've heard from practice, and there's no doubt about it. And he's going to be the next Cam Newton and this and that. And it doesn't work that way. And number 2, that's not accurate. He's been good. So has Davis Warren. Jack Tuttle's been banged up. So, but again, this is not going to be decided until the first game. And ideally, one of those guys, JJ McCarthy in 2022, makes no doubt about it that, hey, I'm the guy. This is going to be my team. And then you go from there. And I've said it many times, if that's Alex Orji and that means he's become an outstanding passer, a good passer, then that raises the ceiling of this team dramatically. Do I predict it? I don't know because we haven't seen him throw a pass in a game. So everybody that's getting their panties in a bunch about, hey, how can you say it's not Alex Orji when he's this great athlete? Well, we haven't seen him throw passes in games, hardly at all. So it is time for him to show what he can do, time for Davis Warren to show what he can do. But I'll tell you this, there is a lot of talent on this football team, not just the ones, the backups too, and the young guys. That was the one thing that stood out to me yesterday was from a practice observer, the guys waiting in the wings were either vastly underrated or overlooked, but they think there's a ton of talent on this team from the senior class to the freshman class, and that they're in good hands with Sherrone Moore.
Yeah, a couple things. One, Miles Hinton would know as well as anybody that just because you start the year as a starter doesn't mean you're going to end it as one. So yeah, I mean, you can kind of figure out some combinations early on in the season. I know the schedule is tougher early on than it has been the last few years, but you mentioned some examples going back to, when they played Notre Dame every year and things like that, when they were still able to make some changes. But with the quarterbacks, I agree. Like I'm hesitant to say that somebody, just because they win the job, is going to be good, or that, just because they play well in one game, that they're going to be, necessarily some elite quarterback. I think I'm fully in wait and see mode, right? And I think Joe Milton in 2020, I know that's been a big example of that, with the Minnesota game where he looked pretty good, but then you went back and you thought about it, you're like, hey, it's kind of just dink and dunk around. And then he had to throw like 50 times in a loss the next week to Michigan State, and the whole year was a throwaway. But I'm kind of in wait and see mode there, and I would feel a lot better if whoever the starting quarterback was had to beat out Jack Tuttle, or a healthy Jack Tuttle, to do it, or if it was Jack Tuttle that took the job, and he had to beat out the other two that were fully healthy. I feel a little. It doesn't mean that somebody hasn't risen to that level that they would have beaten him out anyway, but just the fact that he's been limited kind of leads me to be as much, or more hesitant than I was.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And the fact that none of these guys are proven at all.
Exactly.
You're going in, with hope more than any confidence. And that's why all the confidence about whether it's, hey, man, the people that say, for example, Davis Warren, I've seen him play and I know for a fact he can't do this. And I saw Wilton Spate play before, and he was terrible at times. And I predicted he would never play a meaningful snap at Michigan, and he improved dramatically. And that's what some of these guys do. Davis Warren can make all the throws. He has an NFL arm. And I will say that again to the people that don't want to hear it, or well, you think he's an NFL quarterback? No, I think he's got an NFL arm that can make all the throws. He can wing it. And some people say he layered the ball at times better than J.J. McCarthy, who is one of the best to ever play here. So that doesn't mean he's a better quarterback or even close, but it does mean that he can make the throws. So that's number one. Number two, I feel bad for Jack Tuttle, man. This guy just can't catch a break, right? 7 years now, and it stinks because how badly he would like to play. He's going to be a coach someday, so he's got a bright future no matter what. But some of these guys that hang on, and you get another opportunity, and then to see it again, man. And there's some questions now about what his future will be this year, and which is understandable because he's been banged up. So to me, all three guys though are great leaders. What I love about this room is that there isn't a quarterback like they've had like at least twice in the last 4 years who was, when it came to competition, was either standoffish with their teammates, or if I'm not the starter, I'm out of here. These guys have stuck around. These guys support each other. They are great leaders. If Alex Orji wins the job, or even if he doesn't, I could see him being a captain here down the road. That's how much his teammates think of him. And every time we talk to him, he impresses. So the same thing with Davis Warren and his story. So, but that's what I like about this group. And I love the fact that Kirk Campbell is coaching them. I think they are going to be put in positions to succeed. And there's not tunnel vision like there was, for example, with Joe Milton, where you had other options, but they decided, even in the spring, well, this guy is the biggest and the best specimen with the best arm. We're going to make him a good quarterback. Sometimes it doesn't work that way. You've got other options. You've got to go with what's going to help the team the most. And to me, initially, that's going to be two quarterbacks in the openers, what everybody's saying. Now, if Alex Orji takes the first snaps and he leads a couple touchdown drives and that thing is rolling, I don't want to see Davis Warren at that point. I want to see what they can continue to do with Alex Orji. And then if it gets out of hand, then we see Davis Warren, for example. But to me, my guess is that these guys have different skill sets that complement each other, and it could be a platoon. But really, ideally, it won't be.
To me, if they go in with the plan to platoon, though, and he scores a couple drives early, I still think the other guy, or let's say it's Davis Warren, right? I would still like to give the other guy the shot, because if that's how they came out of practice thinking,
that's fair.
Then maybe, then I would give the guy the shot, because, if they just had 30 practices or whatever it's been, and it's been that close, a small sample size in game. But you're right. I mean, because these guys are so unproven, right? Big Ten Network showed the graphic the other day where I think it's like 214 career passes in games by these three Michigan quarterbacks, Jack Tuttle, Alex Orji, and Davis Warren. 199 of them have been thrown by Jack Tuttle. The other two have extremely small sample sizes as not only players in games, but players in key moments of games. Even for Alex Orji, who earned that opportunity last year, it was just a handful of snaps. So in-game performance is probably going to be something that helps decide this battle. And I agree with you. We'll see a couple quarterbacks on August 31st, 9 days from now against Fresno State, and probably a couple quarterbacks the next week against Texas. And that's another reason why I think another reason why that I am a little bit hesitant to say that Michigan's just fine now at quarterback, because they're going to find a guy. They were always going to find what their setup was going to be, right? Like, so whatever it was, people were going to say it was going to be this, a good thing or whatever. And again, he didn't have to beat out whoever is the guy, or the guys didn't have to beat out a healthy Jack Tuttle. Unfortunately, because we had heard really good things about what he did in the summer, especially, and was kind of the leader there heading into camp. And then the second thing is, if you do platoon, I know Jim Harbaugh pushed back on the cliche a couple of years ago, and he was right in that case. If you have two good quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback, because he was right. He had two good quarterbacks, and he turns out he had an excellent one in J.J. McCarthy and a difference maker. But if you have two quarterbacks that, one really hasn't separated and they're not that proven, I'm tending to believe the cliche just a little bit more. It doesn't mean they can't be good there at that position. But yeah, I agree with you. I think we're going to see a couple quarterbacks, and it's not necessarily maybe what they wanted to do coming into the offseason, but this is kind of the point they're at, where I think it's going to be the Michigan method, so to speak, where they get their shot in the games. And as Jim Harbaugh and Sherrone Moore have said, the best players will play. How do you know who the best players are? They play the best, and that includes in-game.
And I agree with you that if Davis Warren has earned some snaps, that he should get some. My point there is that, hey, if you go down with 2 touchdown drives and you say, hey, I was going to give Alex Orji 2 drives and then go to Davis Warren, but if he marches down the field, you got a 14-0 lead, for example, and it looks really good and he's throwing the ball really well, maybe give him another one.
Sure.
Another one. Get up 21-28 to nothing or 28-7, and then bring Davis Warren
That'd be nice.
in. Yeah. And you know what? That'd be ideal. And I do think this running game is going to help both of these guys. I think anybody who's sleeping on this running game, to me, according to observers, coaches, players, they say these guys are physical up front. These guys have been waiting their turn. They've got 2 NFL guards and Giovanni El-Hadi and Josh Preeb out there, and a kid in Miles Hinton, who they've been touting as a potential first-round draft pick if he lives up to the billing. You got a great battle at right tackle. Andrew Gentry, Jeff Percy, both playing extremely well. This is like the Michigan Lions of old, where you can't go wrong with whoever you put there, compared to the Rich Rodriguez era, when you're, trying to bulk up a former H-back, a high school H-back or something, and put him on the offensive line. I don't even want to think about it. It makes me throw open my mouth a little bit. So, but we are back to where it should be at Michigan. And Sherrone Moore, I have no doubt, as long as he is here, I trust him when he says, as long as I'm here, we are going to be good and physical up front. His players love him. He knows how to coach the position. He trusts Grant Newsome, but his fingerprints will be all over that. So that's where we are today. And I can't wait, man. I really can't wait for the opener now. Summer, I've had a great summer. It's been fantastic. It is now, you're getting that chill in the air at night, Clay, and where it's 50, 40, 48 degrees and the windows are open and you're under the covers and you're thinking, man, it feels like fall and it feels like football. That's where we are. Cannot wait for that opener.
Agreed. Before we move on, defense, seems like things have kind of gone as planned, in my opinion. I am a little encouraged about the added depth, especially maybe up front. They talk about Eno Etta. He's in the 300-pound club now at 308, and he's broken out. And there was a photo that Rayshon Benny posted the other day of him and Eno Etta on the sled together, and their arms were like locked together, like, brothers, and they're hitting the sled together, and they looked identical because he's transformed his body. Like Lou Esposito said, he was 265 pounds when Esposito got here in the spring. Now he's 308 and just a true D tackle. So some added depth up front. You hear about the secondary and how much depth they have there with some of the transfers that came in. We'll see at what level they can play at, like an Amir Hall, right? It might be a little bit of a learning curve early on in the season coming from the FCS, but I feel like the depth has improved. We kind of knew what the starters can do. You hear great things about the linebackers and Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, Josiah, Derek Moore, Makari Page, all the proven commodities there and how they've improved. But Then I start to second guess myself as we go through this process, though. I'm thinking, well, what year have we not heard that guys have stepped up and there's more depth? So it's kind of that point of the year. You're right. Like, we just need the games to happen.
We do. And we've heard good things about the defense, so obviously. And we'll have more on that in tomorrow's Inside the Fort in the morning. So please come in and sign up if you're not already, but read what we have to say. But this is a special group, man. And I mean, there are freak athletes everywhere on this team. I think it was Sherrone who said 4 or 5 first-round picks, and people ask, well, who's the 5th? Jayshawn Barham is killing people out there. They've got guys all over the place, and they do have the depth. So to me, that's watching great defense is as exciting, at least, as watching great offense, just to see them smother teams. I forget what the term was that they used, like squeezing the life out of them or something.
Boa constrictor.
Boa constrictor. There it is. I was going to say python, but boa constrictor it is. And that's exactly what it feels like. And to feel the air come out of a stadium because your defense is just smothering these teams, and that they're not going to be able to move the ball on you, brings a tear to my eye. Warms the cockles of my heart, as Jim Harbaugh and my father would say. So I can't wait to see it. But the fact that this offense is so physical and doing so well, and look at that picture back there of these guys getting at it, man, gives me encouragement too. I'm excited about that. And there's more talent on offense than people are giving them credit for. Colston Loveland, they're going to move him all around. Samaj Morgan, man, that kid has been lights out. So, but hey, Michigan football's back. I can't wait. Clay, we're going to have some great road trips this year. And that opener, it's going to be a long day waiting for that first game. It's exciting because at noon you can get up. I'll wake up at 11:30 and have some eggs and watch some of the noon games and stuff like that. But waiting all day for a football game is painful at times too.
It's true. It's tailgate will be longer though.
Mm-hmm.
That's always that's the silver lining. I'm excited for that. If watching great defense and a stadium becoming deflated, or at least a home, team's offense being stagnant, brings a tear to your eye, you must have been sobbing at Penn State last year. You were in the press box. I was down on the field, but you were probably sobbing up there because that was incredible.
It was. They were resigned to a loss in the fourth quarter because even when they got the ball back, when they were down by 8 points or something, they knew they weren't going to win that football game. They knew they couldn't move the ball across the street, and they had to go for it. In fact, on fourth down from their own 30 or 28-yard line or something like that, 32. Yeah, totally. And that's how desperate they were, because thinking they're not going to get another shot, and that they couldn't do anything to move the ball. So that was beautiful. The Washington game was another one where Michael Penix was limping up the tunnel on the way out of the game, and all those shots of their fans up there, with their head in their hands, and they were so cocky before the game, and the concern. And you just, when you get to that point in the game where that a 10-point lead might be too much to overcome, and your resolve just disappears, and enough is enough, right? No mas at some points. So that's what this defense is going to be. I think all of the consternation about Wink Martindale being too aggressive is going to be proven to be bullshit. And we'll see that from the get-go. He's not going to be irresponsible. He's not stupid. He's a good football coach. So this is going to be a well-coached football team, and this is going to be a very good football team with great culture. And to me, I strongly believe this, Clay, that they're going to beat Texas, and they are going to compete for a playoff spot this year. We'll see if they get to that game against Ohio State with a chance to win a championship. Boy, that would be something else.
This was something I was thinking about too when we were talking about the captains, to your point on the Ohio State game. And I know I've said this throughout the summer and in the whole offseason, they're not going to go down there and play with any fear. They're not going to hold back at all because they've won down there, a lot of them. And think of the guys that are still on this team that made huge plays in that game. Makari Page, a captain, had an interception late in that game. Rayshon Benny, on one of the picks late, I believe, had a key pressure. I think it was Taylor Upshaw's interception. He was in the game, even as more that season. Donovan Edwards, enough said, right? And there were others as well that had big impacts a couple of years ago. So that also goes to show you, when you said earlier, the guys waiting in the wings, I mean, some of those guys were playing and contributing 2 years ago, maybe haven't been starters because so many guys last year came back, but are now stepping into those roles, like a Gio El-Hadi. He had to step into the starting lineup for 3 games 2 seasons ago. Didn't even get to start last year or play that much but is an absolute beast and looks the part and is going to be mauling guys this year from the right guard spot. So I'm excited to see these guys. It's going to be really, really fun. And, somebody we won't see in the first weekend of the college football season due to the new fad, right, is coaches getting suspended, head coaches getting suspended as we move into Kirk Ferentz, who is going to be suspended along with his wide receivers coach, John Boudmeyer, for one game for committing a recruiting violation when courting quarterback Cade McNamara before the transfer portal opened in 2022. A source briefed on the violation told The Athletic. It's just funny that even Kirk Ferentz, who seems to be one of the more stand-up guys and is, I'm sure a clean coach, something gets found out about you. Next thing you know, you're not on the sideline.
There have been allegations, obviously, against that program. I think they had a settlement with some African-American football players in which he acknowledged no wrongdoing whatsoever. And that was disappointing because I have always held him in such high regard. And my experiences with him at Big Ten Media Day, back when they had roundtables and we could get them with just a couple of guys to talk to. He was one of the classiest individuals I ever met. And we used to talk about Forrest Evashevsky and some of the guys that ended up at Iowa. And I always had great interactions with him. My boy Tom Kakert at the Iowa On3 site has said there's nothing but positives with Kirk Ferentz over the years. There's Cade McNamara in the background there, the quarterback at Iowa. So, but it's goofy, man. It's where we are now. And to me, tampering with Cade is I guess, and it wasn't Michigan apparently that reported him. It was somebody else from.
Correct.
So, but we are in a place now where the NCAA or whoever's making these decisions, are they relevant anymore? I really don't think so. And it's going to be fascinating to see what kind of season they have, though, if their offense is any better, because given that schedule and the fact that they're going to have a tough defense, some people are saying, hey, they're a sneaky choice to make the playoff. So I don't see it, but you know what? That's a program that I've always had respect for, back to the Hayden Fry days. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't imagine that they're going to have any problems beating, Illinois State without him.
I was just going to say it's Illinois State game one. So it's the same thing as Michigan last year, right? Where you don't need Jim Harbaugh to win those games. You don't need Kirk Ferentz to beat Illinois State. Hopefully, if you're an Iowa fan, I would personally, the two funniest outcomes would be them losing that game. And the second funniest would be if they drop 70 points on this team without Kirk Ferentz, because then everyone would be like, oh my gosh, he was the problem the entire time. They do have a new OC this year, Tim Lester. So it's going to be their schedule is favorable. There were years in the last 15 seasons where Iowa would have made a 12-team playoff. So they do have a chance. I mean, there's the schedule there. So for people listening, it's Iowa State or Illinois State, Iowa State, Troy, at Minnesota, at Ohio State, Washington, at Michigan State, Northwestern, Wisconsin, at UCLA, at Maryland versus Nebraska. It's manageable.
It is.
So we'll see what happens with them. But figured with one, Michigan's coaches are constantly getting suspended, it seems like last year. And the fact that Cade McNamara was in there, we figured we'd mention it. And the timeline here was interesting. He did enter the transfer portal November 28th. He committed to Iowa by December 1st. Pretty quick. I remember at the time thinking, something was probably up there. But guess what? Something's probably up with about every transfer portal recruitment out there, including when Alabama steals your kicker, right? You saw that from Miami, Ohio's Chuck Martin. Yeah.
That was so good. And he said, let's call it what it is. They flat out broke the rules and they tampered with them. And they stole them. He goes, what? Hey, so is there any tampering anymore? I don't think so. It's all agents and free agency. They got to get rid of the 1-year transfer rule. They have to have contracts for players or something. So that this doesn't become free agency year after year after year. That's not fair to anybody. And maybe it's best for the players, but at the same time, I think Jim Harbaugh, when he said that back in the day, didn't anticipate, between the whole the transfer portal and the NIL, what those two together could really create for college football. So they've got to fix it. I trust that there are some good minds out there somewhere that can do that. I don't think any of them are at the NCAA.
Right. And that's the problem. Well, the problem is, lawsuits have forced them to now change some things. But just for context, if people have no clue what we were talking about at the end there, Chuck Martin, the head coach at Miami, Ohio, was asked in an interview about their kicker. The guy said, you lost your kicker this year. You're going to have to replace him. And he said, we didn't lose him. He's at Alabama. We know exactly where he's at. You media people, it's all pretend. Like, no, Alabama stole our kicker. They illegally recruited our kicker and stole him from us. That's a fact. So that's the context around that one, and pretty much says everything you need to know about the way this stuff works. And I agree, it's not sustainable. Changes are coming next year, but we'll see how it all plays out. That's our show for this week, and the next one will be on Monday night, 6:00, our live show. So join us there on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to our channel, like this video, and it'll be game week by the next time we're on here. So definitely pumped up for that. Leave a comment, leave a review, head to thewolverine.com as well. Use the promo code GOBLUE, GOBLUE. You should know how to spell it. 50% off an annual subscription. You get behind the paywall there. You get in on our message board. You get inside the fort, other premium articles with intel analysis, all sorts of stuff throughout the season. So 50% off annual subscription. It's $4.99 a month, billed annually. So join us at thewolverine.com right now, and we'll see everyone next time.